Hi everybody, it's Geordie from Geordie's Cards. Thank you so much for joining me today. I am back with episode 15 of my Shop Your Crafty Stash series. I've really been enjoying this series. I hope you have too. Let's dive in and see what the random number generator chose for me today. So it pulled out this Frosty Fairy Friends stamp set from Lawnfawn and also the stitched cupcake dies from Lawnfawn. Now, confession, I haven't used these dies at all, so I was really happy to be pulling them out today. I also decided to pull out the Sprinkled with Joy stamp set just for that little shaker and the frosting container there as well. I'm using the Sweet Friends stamp set just for some of the sentiments in there. And I then pulled out a couple of other dies. So I have the Quilted Heart backdrop die here. And finally, Henry's ABCs. Now, I decided that I could kill two birds with one stone and enter this into the Lawnfawnatics challenge, which is a color challenge at the moment. So it's all these kind of pretty pinks and some blues. So I decided to, play along. I haven't done that for a while, haven't joined the Lawnfawnatics challenge in ages, so I thought it was a good chance to do that. As it's a colour challenge, it was quite easy to kind of make things work for that. So I have die cut all of my pieces for my little cupcake here, and I've used that colour palette as an inspiration for that. So I've got this kind of vanilla looking cupcake with some pink frosting, a darker kind of pinky purple base, and I've cut some little strawberries here. These are from some, I think this is raspberry cardstock from Lawnfawn. I have a box of kind of scraps that I pull from when I'm creating these little die cut images because I have so many little scraps that work. I don't know which cardstocks they are. I literally just pile them all into a box and rifle through them when I need them. So I'm not 100% sure of the colours, but they look to me like ballet slippers, vanilla malt, that brighter pink, it looks a bit like raspberry, and then the green looks like cilantro. I'm not sure about that purpley colour that I've used for the base of the strawberry cupcake. It might be from a different brand. I'm not 100% sure, but I thought it worked, so I just put it all together. So I'm just trying to figure out how I'm going to pop my cupcake together. Obviously, I've popped the frosting on top of the cupcake. Now I'm just figuring out where my little strawberries are going to go. And initially, I thought it would work like that. I decided that one strawberry in my cupcake was enough, and then I'll have the other one just sat beside it at the bottom there, just leaning kind of against the cupcake case. And that was kind of the cupcake part of my card done. So I set that aside to dry for a little bit while I worked on the other pieces. So from my Henry's ABCs, I have gone ahead and cut the sentiment frosting. Now I have done it 3 times from that ballet slippers cardstock and once from that raspberry cardstock. And what I'm doing is I'm stacking my sentiments, my letters even, one on top of the other. And so I'll have 3 of those light pink pieces, and I'm going to top it with a dark pink piece, which I am going to kind of just offset slightly so it creates a bit of a shadow effect. I'm going to do this with all of the letters off camera because you really don't need me to repeat this process over and over again. And there we go. I have my sentiment which says frosting. So to finish that sentiment, I'm going to use these pieces from that Sweet Friends stamp set. I'm going to use the You're the and on my cupcake. So it's going to read, You're the frosting on my cupcake. I've gone ahead and stamped that onto some Blue Jay cardstock, and I've white heat embossed those sentiments. And I'm just using my paper trimmer to carefully cut that down into little strips, which are going to sit above and below the rest of that sentiment, the frosting part. So yeah, it's a bit fiddly to try and work this in the paper trimmer. I saw my friend Kate from Kate's Crafts had a little trick of using a sticky note to help you hold it in place. I really need to do that. I was a bit lazy, and you can see it was a bit of a struggle. So Kate, I'm going to have to borrow your idea and use that in future. Really makes sense. This is so fiddly. But I did get there in the end, and I think I managed to get it relatively straight. It's probably not perfect, but hey, you know what? It's okay. It's a handmade card. So that is my sentiment done. I have gone ahead and cut that Quilted Heart backdrop from some white Lawnfawn cardstock. This is 80 pound cardstock. And I'm going to back it onto that piece of Watercolor Wishes rainbow 6x6 paper that I've got there in this nice yellow color. So I'm just going to glue that flat down with some liquid glue, and you'll get this nice pop of yellow through the hearts, which I just think looks really lovely. And obviously yellow was one of the colors in that color challenge, so I wanted to try and incorporate that a little bit as well. Now I have all of my elements complete. I did go ahead and colour and cut out some fairies from that Frosty Fairy Friends stamp set, which you will see here in a second. I'm just laying everything out onto my card base to try and figure out where everything's going to go. And I always struggle with that S from Henry's ABCs. I always get it around the wrong way, so I was trying to be extra careful there and make sure I had it the correct way around. That frosting sentiment literally just squeezes on there. I kind of have to butt all of the letters up really close together to get them to fit. But it does fit, thankfully. And here are my little fairies that I've coloured and cut out. Now I have coloured them in the blue colours because, that was one of the colours from the Colour Palette Challenge. And I wanted to try and incorporate that in there somewhere. So once I'm kind of happy with the placement of where things are going to go, I'm going to try and sort out my sentiment here and make sure that I can get it all squeezed on nicely so it doesn't look too all over the place. Once I'm kind of happy with the placement roughly, I'm going to take this piece of low-tack tape and stick it across my letters. And then I'm going to grab my liquid glue and go ahead and use my liquid glue on the back of the letters, and then I can just transfer even those letters back to my card base and stick them down with the liquid glue. This just makes life a lot easier once you've kind of figured out placement, rather than messing around with each individual letter. Now it's not perfectly straight, as you'll see. I kind of like the look of it being a little bit wonky, and I'm kind of happy with that, so it's all good. But if you wanted to make sure that was nice and straight, you could use your grid mat to line up the letters and pick it up with the tape like I've done here. Once that is done, I'm going to stick down the rest of my sentiment. So the "You're the" goes at the top onto the left-hand side, and the other piece which says "On my cupcake" is going to go below that frosting sentiment on the, did I say right-hand side before? I meant left-hand side. This one's going on the right-hand side. And that is my sentiment complete. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on my little cupcake. I'm going to attach this little frosting jar down beside the cupcake there, just tuck it behind there. And then I'm just going to use liquid glue on the cupcake itself and attach that to the background panel. I'm going to try and get it nice and centered. I did end up kind of trying to line it up with my grid mat in the end to make sure it was, and just shifted it over slightly to make sure it was in the right place. Once I was happy with that, I kind of plopped it down. I did add a little bit more glue behind that strawberry. It's sticking up slightly because it's obviously tucked into that cardstock, but it did attach down nicely in the end. And now it's on to my little fairies. So those two fairies that are flying at the top, they're going to be holding this little sprinkle jar. So I'm going to put one in each of their hands and kind of make it look like they're holding that. And then I'm going to attach these little fairies down with some foam squares. I thought they would look nice with just a little bit of dimension, just to look like they're kind of flying above and in front of the little cupcake. So I've pulled out these Scrapbook adhesive foam squares here, and I'm going a little bit over the top with this first one. You probably don't need that many foam squares on there, but I always like to be careful and make sure it's well attached down. So I'm going to pop her down on the bottom kind of left-hand side of my cupcake. And then I'm just going to use 2 foam squares for each of the other ones, and I'm going to pop them up on either side of the cupcake, kind of flying around, holding that little sprinkle jar, ready to sprinkle some glitter or magic onto the cupcake. I'm not sure which. So speaking of glitter and magic, I decided that I needed a few more finishing touches. So I'm pulling out my white Sakura Jelly Roll pen here, and I'm just going to add some highlight details to all of the letters on my sentiment there. Make them kind of pop a little bit and stand out. I really like doing this, especially on the sentiments. I think it really makes them pop. My gel pen was playing up today. It wasn't working as nicely as I would have liked it to. It worked okay, but it could have been a little better. It seems to, I don't know whether it's drying up. Maybe I need to get a new one. But it was fine in the end. We got there. Then I decided to pull out this crystal Stickles because obviously fairies need a lot of glitter. So I'm adding that to their little wings. And then I'm going to add a little bit to various other pieces as well. So I'm going to add a little bit to the little jars that the two flying fairies are holding. I'm going to add it on to the base of all of my letters, just to make it look a little bit sparkly, just towards the base of the letters. And then I'm going to add some onto the cupcake itself as well, because, you know, we need lots of glitter in a fairy card, really. So I kind of thought about leaving it there, and then I was like, no, I need some on my cupcake. So I'm going all the way around the edge of that frosting and in between each of those lines there. And then I decided to call that quits. And then when I put it down, I realized that I needed something on my strawberries as well. So I pulled out my Jelly Roll pen again and just added a little bit of highlight to my strawberries, being quite careful not to get my fingers in all the glitter that I've just popped down there. And a little bit onto the cupcake base as well. I decided that needed some as well. Once that was done, that was all the messing, and all I needed to do was to attach it to a card base. So I've chosen a plain white card base. It's 5.5 by 4.25, and it's top folding. And I'm going to carefully, again, glue my card panel down on top of this, because obviously that glitter gel takes a little while to set and dry. So I just need to be careful that I don't stick my fingers in it. So that's normally what I would do. I was actually very careful today, and I did quite well and managed to do it without getting glitter everywhere and without smearing it all over the place. So it was a win for me. And that is it. My little card is done. So episode 15 of my Shop Your Crafty Stash series, and an entry into the current Lawnfawnatics challenge. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up. Please do subscribe to my channel. I'd love to see you come back again. And please feel free to leave a comment. I always love to hear from you. Thanks so much for joining me.